Thank you for joining us again in a sequence of conversations. Last time, it's fair to say that Jonathan might have shown his eccentric side with his discussion of magic eye pictures and Romanesque broccoli. In fact, I have to say, I didn't really know what Romanesque broccoli looked like, but having Googled it, it is extraordinary. Anyway, we're now going to talk a little bit more about Jonathan's real passion, which is reading.
Yes, I think, Jane, the single most valuable gift that anyone can receive as a human being is a love of the written word and a love of literature. It reminds me of quite an eccentric American poet called Strickland Gilliland, who wrote a poem called The Reading Mother, and the final couplet, I think, is something that should be in the heart of all teachers and probably in the heart of all parents. And this poem ends, "Richer than I, you can never be, for I had a mother who read to me." And it's something in the human psyche, it's something in human nature that we enjoy story and we enjoy being told stories. And possibly one of the greatest shames in education of recent years, possibly even since the National Literacy Strategy came in, is that some teachers these days don't read to their children every day. And I think that's absolutely wrong. We all enjoy a story. We all enjoy a story being told well. So in any school that I've ever led, infant classes have enjoyed at least one picture book being read to them every day without fail, at least one picture book. And junior classes need a daily dose of a serialized story, because that should be one of the highlights of the day, where we can all sit down, we can all listen to our teacher, and we can all find out what happens next in the plot that we're exploring together.
I think I couldn't agree with you more. For me, reading is super important. And just from the little I know about primary schools, I know there's been a debate about phonics versus real stories. Is that debate still going on, or has it been decided?
I think at the moment, I think the educational establishment, or lots of branches of the educational establishment, think it has been decided, but I definitely disagree with them. I don't think it has. And I do think the fact you've asked the question brings back one of the things we were talking about last time, which is that difference between functional competency and true passion. Nowhere is that more true than in reading. For when we take a text, we all make our own meanings of it. We draw on our prior experience. It means something slightly different to all of us. And those people who would say the reading debate is over and phonetic decoding has won, I think are very short-sighted in terms of, yes, in the short term, quite possibly phonetic decoding has won, but in the long term, that's not true reading.
Oh, that's really interesting. And so are you saying that even for our youngest children, it's important that they somehow can, are you saying that even with the youngest children, they can benefit from real books as such?
Absolutely they can. And I think what good schools realize is that this thing called reading is actually two subjects. There's a subject which we could call phonics, and lots of schools do call phonics. I don't like that phrase. I prefer decoding, because decoding is undoubtedly what we do. When we read a book, it is in code. It's a load of squiggles on the page, and we turn those squiggles into meaning. So we're undoubtedly decoding. One of the subsets of decoding is phonics, but it's not everything in decoding. And English is a tricky language, especially when you're learning it and especially when you're young, because it can lull you into a false sense of security. A lot of it is phonetically decodable. When we know the sounds that a letter makes, we can probably say the word that those sounds make when they all go together. But lots of the most exciting words, the most dynamic words, the most interesting words, they don't play by the rules. Those aren't phonetically decodable, and yet those are the words which lead to the passion and the excitement in stories. So we have to embrace those words. We shouldn't ignore them. We shouldn't say, oh, we aren't going to put these words in our reading books because children are going to find them hard to read. Children want to read. Children have a language acquisition device. It's there, it's inside them. They want to engage with text, and we shouldn't sell them short just by doing a phonetic approach.
So I think you're saying that decoding while related to reading is not the same. Is that right?
Well, I would say it's not the same. It's completely different, because at the heart of reading, there is passion. And a child who has learnt to read properly will be excited about a new book, will come up to you and say, oh, did you know that such and such an author has a new book out in a fortnight's time? That enthusiasm, that desire to express themselves almost as a fan, absolutely as a fan of the author, as much as they'd be a fan of a film star or a pop star or whatever, that is true reading. Phonics or phonetic-based approaches often fall short of that right from the beginning. And a child is reading a reading book, and the reason they're reading that book is not to enjoy it, but to read the next book. So when you've read book one, what is your reward? It's not, oh, you know a really, really good story. It's that you can take it back to your teacher will say, well done, and give you book two. And then you do the same thing again in order to get book three. Once that all becomes a bit boring, then you change it into colours. So you read a whole load of books that have got red dots on, and then the purpose of reading a red dot book is to read a yellow dot book. That isn't teaching the passion either. It's doing the functional literacy. It's making sure nobody gets left behind. But good teachers do that anyway. They put the intervention strategies in place when they need the intervention strategies, and they don't sacrifice the luxury and the enjoyment of the majority of the children in order to make sure nobody's left behind. Because children should see reading as having an adventure, going into another world, joining friends in a parallel existence. So Jane, I know you're a mum, and when we worked together at City, you had quite young children. So I'm going to take a gamble here. I'm guessing you know Biff, Chip, Kipper, and Floppy the dog.
Oh yes, and can I say the nosy neighbour who's always looking over the fence.
And the nosy neighbour over the fence, absolutely. And your children, I bet, really enjoyed reading those books. So they learned to read with them, but they also learnt the passion of them. And you often see it with children in that series when there is a particular device that the author uses, which Floppy wears round his neck, Jane.
Not a bone. Oh, the magic key. The magic key, is that right?
The magic key. And it's I love the fact that it's almost a badge of honor amongst children when in any year cohort, somebody discovers a new magic key story, and they will be so excited in the playground and say things like, and they go back to Roman times in this, and it really is. Within a child's world, it's every soap opera all glued together is Biff, Chip, Kipper, the magic key, and Floppy, and the nosy neighbor. And in those books, it's a physical magic key, and it takes children physically into other worlds in the stories they read. But of course, their reading skills are developing as they engage with that passion, and they're making their own magic keys in developing their love of literature, of reading, of imagination. They can go anywhere in books. They are learning that books give them the biggest travel agency possible, the highest specification time machine. They can do whatever they want in those stories about the magic key. And that's so much more exciting. That's so much richer than boring old phonetically decodable text that you read in order to get a sticker and to go on to book 6 when you've been on book 5. It's a world apart. It's absolutely a world apart.
And what happens once children get beyond the reading schemes?
Well, I do think, okay, by the time we've got to there, we've probably read, well, it feels like about 1,000. It's probably only about 150 books about Biff, Chip, Kipper, and Floppy the dog. So I imagine parents breathe a huge sigh of relief and think, good, we don't have to do that again. But of course, for children, it's the most wonderful time because the world of free choice books opens up to them, and they can start to find their own favourite authors, their own favourite characters. And when they read a diverse diet of literature, of course, their writing skills expand as well, because we all learn from masters, we all emulate the authors who we prefer. So yet again, they're getting that magic key into their thinking, into their cognitive skills, and it's time for them to explore so many brilliant writers whose work will be best friends with them for years to come. So once they get off the scheme, before too long, they'll be into the worlds of Francesca Simon or Roald Dahl or David Walliams or Mallory Blackman or Jacqueline Wilson. So many brilliant books out there that, yes, it's the job of teachers to guide them to the right book, to help them through the right book, but it's never ending. It's a wonderful world of discovery that's just opening itself up for them.
And do you think children ever grow out of stories?
No, I don't. I really, really hope not. And I think as adults, we never grow out of stories. Because actually what you and I are doing now in these discussions we're having, which hopefully parents are listening to as well, what we're actually doing is we're engaging in story. They may be true stories, but it's part of the human brain. It's part of what we do to engage in narrative and to engage in story. And a love of reading has so many benefits, not just educationally, but to all aspects of life and to all aspects of the human condition. That's why year 6 need to be read to. They need those periods when they think they're going to be, I don't know, exploring their geography topic about the Andes or something, but actually a teacher walks in and says, hey, this is a new David Walliams book, it's just come in the post, would you like me to sit down and read it to you? And then that's the best treat ever for those children. Year 6 need a story just as much as nursery and reception. We never grow out of it. There's a book, this is the book that was under the other one, Charlie Changes into a Chicken. And in the middle of their 11 plus exams, some children recommended Charlie Changes into a Chicken for me. And it was what was getting them through. They were loving that book. It wasn't necessarily developing their reading skills, but it was giving them an awful lot of good things.
Charlie Changes into a Chicken. Wow, that sounds interesting reading for year 6.
Absolutely, I thought that as well. So they came to me, we were having an English lesson. It was the middle of 11 plus, so I was a very, very boring teacher and didn't let them gush endlessly about Charlie Changes into a Chicken, but I was aware that they were very, very fond of it. So like the good teacher that I am, I went to Waterstones on the way home that night and I bought myself a copy. Shamefully, I didn't like the look of it, Jane. I judged the book by the cover. It's got a sparkly golden cover and it's got red tinted pages, which I can't bear. So it sat by my bedside and I didn't get round to reading it till about a fortnight ago. And you know, it was so good to read. I was stuck indoors. We were in the lockdown that we've got at the minute. I was feeling a bit gloomy. Things weren't working technologically for what I wanted to put in place for school. It was a bit of a bad day and it completely changed my mood. I laughed out loud at some of it and it actually takes a lot. Well, sometimes it takes a lot for me to laugh out loud. Sometimes I seem to just not be able to stop laughing. But on the whole, if I'm just by myself, it takes a lot for me to laugh out loud. But that transformed my day. If any parents have read it, it's the bit about the French-speaking pigeons. I just thought it was utterly hilarious. And what that is bibliotherapy. That is us being able to deal with our emotions, to deal with our challenges through escaping into a different world, which puts our brain in a slightly different way of operating, almost as if our brain works on 2 levels at the same time. Lots of it is dealing with the story that we're reading, and that's our conscious thought, but it also gives our background brain time to process whatever it is we're grappling with. And I often think that lots of the mental health difficulties that some children seem to encounter today probably have all or part of their roots in the fact that those children haven't discovered a love for reading, haven't found a way to escape into books, because that love hasn't been fostered in them. And that, to me, more than anything else, is why reading is absolutely fundamental.
I think that's absolutely fascinating. And I have to say that I agree with you. When it's been a bad day, I need to seek out a certain type of book and I feel so much better.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's great. I absolutely share your passion for reading. That was a fabulous discussion. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.